On March 24, 2015, Germanwings Flight 9525 crashed into the French Alps, killing all 150 people on board. The crash was the culmination of a methodical, premeditated plot by co-pilot Andreas Lubitz, who spent days researching cockpit security and aircraft systems before executing his plan. This video unravels the timeline of the disturbing details of Lubitz's actions in the days prior to this horrific disaster, as well as a minute-by-minute account of the flight's final moments. The digital trail of a disturbed mind. Upon recovering Lubitz's smartphone, laptop and tablets from his apartment in Düsseldorf and his parents' home in Montabaur, Germany, investigators discovered that Lubitz had left a chilling digital footprint. By accessing his deleted hard drive files, as well as retrieving his search queries, timestamps, and website visits from his web browsers, forensics experts found shocking evidence of his deliberate plan to crash Germanwings Flight 9525. The following is a detailed account of his online activity as it relates to the tragic incident. March 16, 2015. Lubitz begins his grim research by looking up the operational details of Airbus A320 cockpit doors. Using aviation forums and technical manuals accessible online, he explores how to securely lock the cockpit from the inside, specifically focusing on the emergency access code's manual override feature that would prevent others from entering in an emergency. March 17, 2015. On this day, Lubitz searches for autopilot altitude settings, as well as methods to disable alarms on the Airbus A320. He visits aviation enthusiast websites and pilot forums, poring over discussions about autopilot controls and how to manipulate altitude settings for steep descents. These searches reflect his efforts to ensure he can execute his plan without interference from the aircraft's safety systems. March 18, 2015. Lubitz delves into historical aviation disasters caused by pilot actions. He reads articles and accident reports about the 1997 Silkair Flight 185 and the 1999 Egyptair Flight 990 incidents, both of which involved deliberate acts by pilots. These searches suggest he is studying the methods and circumstances surrounding these incidents, perhaps drawing inspiration or learning from their execution. March 19, 2015. Lubitz accesses video tutorials demonstrating the A320 cockpit doors' manual locking mechanisms and emergency access procedures. He views schematics of the cockpit door and studies timed locking protocols. These videos, likely found on popular video-sharing platforms, illustrate step-by-step guides on how cockpit doors function under various scenarios, solidifying his understanding of how to secure himself in the cockpit. March 20th, 2015. On this day, Lubitz searches for general methods of committing suicide, including ways to do so discreetly. Investigators later uncovered searches related to painless or guaranteed methods of suicide. They found that he typed the search terms suicide methods and painless death into the search bar on his web browser. His searches for high-profile plane crashes suggest he was drawn to high-profile incidents of mass murder and the notoriety these events generated. March 21, 2015. Lubitz downloads official Airbus documentation related to the cockpit door system. He focuses his attention on techniques to override aircraft safety systems, including deactivating alerts that could draw attention to abnormal flight behavior. His searches span aviation safety websites and medical forums, revealing a dark intersection of his personal struggles and professional expertise. March 22, 2015. Lubitz conducts internet searches reviewing weather forecasts and flight schedules for upcoming flights, including Germanwings Flight 9525. In addition, Lubitz focuses his research on the Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System, EGPWS for short. He examines how the system works, including its alarm triggers and methods to suppress its alerts. This research underscores his meticulous preparation to avoid detection during the descent. March 23, 2015. Less than 24 hours before the crash, Lubitz reviews cockpit door security details one final time. He pores over details regarding emergency cockpit access codes and revisits strategies to prevent forced entry. His activity highlights a final rehearsal of his plan, ensuring he can counter any last-minute attempts to stop him. He also searches the internet for news articles about mass murders and their aftermath, suggesting he is preoccupied with the attention such acts generate. Harrowing timeline of the fatal flight. Morning of the crash. No new searches are conducted on Lubitz's devices before boarding Germanwings Flight 9525. However, forensic analysis suggests he was mentally prepared, having spent weeks gathering information to execute his plan. March 24, 2015, 10:01 a.m. Germanwings Flight 9525 departs from Barcelona, reaching a cruising altitude of 38,000 feet by 10:27 a.m. Lubitz and Captain Patrick Sondenheimer maintain casual conversation during the ascent. 10:27 and 29 seconds a.m. Captain Sondenheimer leaves the cockpit to use the lavatory, leaving Lubitz alone at the controls. 10:29 and 12 seconds a.m. By briefly setting the target altitude to 49,000 feet for approximately 3 seconds, Lubitz tests the limits of the aircraft's controls. Although this sudden and extreme input seems bizarre, the brief adjustment indicates he is experimenting with the autopilot system to be certain his commands would override the system without fail. 10:29 and 40 seconds a.m. Lubitz turns the autopilot dial to alter the target altitude. He resets the autopilot altitude to just 100 feet above sea level, initiating a steady descent at 3,500 feet per minute, essentially instructing the plane to descend into the mountainous terrain ahead. This is a deliberate act which ensures a steady but terminal trajectory, and was later confirmed by the FDR, which recorded the change in altitude input at this precise time. 10:32 and 3 seconds a.m. As alarms begin sounding, Lubitz makes minor adjustments to the targeted altitude settings in order to maintain the descent profile, ensuring the plane's trajectory remains aimed at the French Alps. He stays silent as the enhanced ground proximity warning system begins its first warnings. 10:32 and 48 seconds a.m. Sondenheimer returns from the lavatory and attempts to use the emergency access code to re-enter the cockpit. He realizes he is locked out and begins pounding on the cockpit door. However, despite his frantic efforts to break through the door, using tools and shouting commands, Lubitz remains emotionless behind the locked doors, fully committed to his plan. Lubitz has already activated the manual lock override, ensuring no one can re-enter the cockpit. 10:35 a.m. The EGPWS issues repeated alerts. Terrain! Terrain! Pull up! Pull up! Lubitz, however, continues to ignore the warnings, calmly maintaining the descent with chilling precision. 10:37 a.m. As the aircraft plunges below 10,000 feet, the terrain alarms intensify. Passengers, now fully aware of the imminent disaster, scream in terror. Despite multiple alarms, including EGPWS warnings and cockpit door alerts, Lubitz's silence and actions underscore his intent. The minor adjustments he made ensures the plane remained on course for collision. 10:40 and 53 seconds a.m. The aircraft descends to just 6,175 feet, a height at which impact with the terrain is inevitable. Subsequently, the autopilot maintains a set trajectory until the moment of impact, when Germanwings Flight 9525 crashes into a mountainside near Prades-Haute-Bléon in the French Alps, traveling at over 430 miles per hour. All 150 souls on board are killed instantly, and the aircraft is obliterated, leaving behind an apocalyptic scene of unimaginable devastation.